Well, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you happen to be around the world, and welcome to another Agency Success live stream here on hosting.com. It is office hours. Every Thursday, we open the virtual office doors and let you come in and ask any question you would like to ask. So to do that, you use the link on wpnathan.com, big button in the top to ask a question, or you can simply click the link that is there waiting on you in the chat. We do take those questions in the order they were received, usually-ish. So go ahead and get your questions in at any time during the week. You don't have to wait until office hours to ask that question. As always, we'll start off with a couple of bits of WordPress news, or news that impacts us as agency owners. A couple of interesting things have happened in the last week since we were last here during office hours. The first happened over the weekend when Matt Mullenweg posted on his blog that a legal victory was achieved over WP Engine. Several of the big claims that WP Engine had against Matt were dismissed, or either completely dismissed or dismissed with permission to amend later with additional details. So those included the antitrust allegations, the monopolization allegations, and the extortion allegations. So those were some of the biggest claims that WP Engine had on the table. However, there are still some serious points in this case that WP Engine has against Automatic and Matt. So Matt declared victory, but the full court order shows that there are a few really interesting claims that survive. There are still 9 claims, actually, that WP Engine has in the court case, among which are interference with contracts, which is that's a pretty big deal, unfair competition, also a big deal, and defamation. The defamation one is going to be, I think, the hardest to get around because Matt has posted in various places calling WP Engine parasitic, a cheap knockoff, and my favorite, a bastardized simulacra of WordPress's GPL code. So that's going to be a little hard to get around, I think. One of the more interesting claims left on the table relates to the controversy that happened when the ACF plugin was taken over. That's problematic. And so we'll have to see what happens and how that works out. Matt said in one of the responses to a comment on his blog post, I'll drop that link in the chat for anybody that wants it. That is Matt's blog post about this issue. He says it's going to be at least 2 more years, before we get any sort of progress on this case. So it's still a long time coming to work this whole thing out. So the recent unpleasantness in WordPress continues and will likely be unpleasant for some time to come. Something else I want to show you is this new release happened, let's see, end of last week or beginning of this week. It is called the Really Simple Licensing Standard. This is by a group of people, among whom is the creator of RSS. And so RSL is a new protocol that allows large language models, AI tools, essentially, to pay per crawl for website content. So it's a standardized protocol that could be used web-wide in order to allow compensation for content. There's a lot of big backers behind this new standard, like Reddit, Quora, Yahoo, Medium, O'Reilly Publishers, and Ziff Davis. They have formed a collective called the RSL Collective that's going to function like ASCAP does in the music industry, where artists can collaboratively negotiate for the price for the rights to their music and that sort of thing. So anyway, it's pretty interesting. You can read about it there at rslstandard.org. And also, if you want to play around with a WordPress implementation, James LePage, who is one of the leads for the AI team for WordPress, has already released a plugin. I've dropped the link for his GitHub, the plugin page there on his GitHub. where you can bring in RSL to WordPress. It's pretty interesting. If you're interested in that sort of thing, just give it a quick click or two, and I think you'll find some interesting things there. The one last thing I'll mention, I can't remember if I mentioned this last week in office hours or not, so I'll briefly mention it again. And that is that Namecheap, which is probably the biggest competitor to GoDaddy when it comes to domain names, Namecheap has been acquired, or a venture capital firm has acquired a controlling interest, is better, in Namecheap. So that's out there. It's been talked about a bit, and I might have mentioned it last week. But if you have a Namecheap domain name, just be aware of that. I would doubt that you would see any major changes anytime soon, but that is in fact happening. All righty. So just another quick little bit of what's coming up here on Agency Success. The link bundle, I just dropped that again in the chat for today. Note that we do have coming up on not this coming Tuesday, but next Tuesday, an excellent webinar. I'm looking forward to bringing this to you on about our hosting blueprint. This is a topic that I've had requests for some time, about, how do we set up our agency server using WHM and cPanel to host multiple client sites, and what is not only the technical how-tos, that'll be a bit of what we talk about. A lot of it will be more conceptual. How do you build your website care plan around hosting using the hosting.com tools that are available? So that's coming up on Tuesday, the 30th of September. Also, a brand new live stream. We just got published, I think, today. Daphne will be back with us, Daphne from the hosting.com team, on Tuesday, October the 7th, talking about domain migration done right. So she's actually going to show how she was able to take all of the URLs involved in some of the other hosting properties like A2 hosting and map all those things correctly, so that when hosting.com launched, it retained the SEO authority of the previous website. So that's going to be a really interesting conversation, because that had to have been a lot of work. I'm looking forward to hearing that one. Tuesday, October the 14th, I'll be back with you talking about confident consultations and an approach, a framework to have that first client discovery conversation about a new project. Then we have Tuesday, October the 15th, boosting site speed with WP Rocket. You may be aware that hosting.com has a great partnership with WP Rocket, and you can purchase that through hosting.com now as well. And it's included as part of rocket.net, which is also part of the hosting.com family. So all those links are there waiting on you in the chat. Take a look at those. Sign up for the live streams you haven't signed up for yet. And looking forward to all of that, which is to come. Turn our attention to some questions, shall we? It looks like we have currently 8 questions in the list. And it looks like, thank you for that correction, Katie. The site speed is Wednesday, October the 15th, because Tuesday is October the 14th. All right. If you have a question you'd like to ask, you can get that in using the link in the chat. And let's begin, shall we, with the first question. This is from Jeffrey. Jeffrey, are you here today? There you are. Excellent. So here we go. Oh, this sounds good. All right. So Jeffrey is asking, what are your best tips for managing email fatigue as an agency owner? Oh, I like this question. How do you manage email fatigue as an agency owner? The more websites I manage, the more routine notification emails I receive. Do you use a separate email address for these, or another strategy? I don't want to miss important messages from a site, and especially a client, but I also find myself doing a daily select all and delete just to clear the clutter. Any tools or ideas you have found to be especially useful? Great. So Chris from my team is in the chat, and he says that I just forward them all to him. And he's not wrong about that. But this is a great question. So just real quick in the chat, give me a yes or a virtual hand raise if you also struggle with this thing. Because email fatigue, I love that term. I may start using that myself. I love this. So thank you, Jeffrey, for this question. So big picture, if we'll start with the email notifications from all the things first. And I think the key to not driving yourself absolutely insane is filters. And as I'm looking at the chat now, I see that Katie suggested that right off the bat. Yeah. So filter things out and maybe group within your filters or folders or however your email app is set up, the various types, right? So, if you've got security type notifications, backup type notifications, whatever. The easiest way to pull those things out of your inbox and stick them somewhere you can look at them on a scheduled periodic basis, use filters and just kind of go through them every now and then. Now you may, if you've got, for example, a piece of security software that says you've got a big vulnerability in a plugin, then, find some words in that and make that one stay in your inbox, right? Because that may be one you want to see immediately. But my guess is with, some really careful looking and creation of filters, you can eliminate most of that stuff out of your inbox. Now, what you have to be sure to do is to create some sort of a personal system where you just don't forget that they exist, because that would be nice, wouldn't it? But they are there and they do need looking at. So maybe it's, once a day or every other day or whatever it needs to be for you. Have a reminder pop up on your, reminders list or a calendar, scheduling something on your calendar that reminds you to go take a look at those things and sort through them just to be sure. I have tons of WordPress newsletters just to stay in the loop, and I don't want to unsubscribe to any of them. But they all live in a little tag for newsletters in my email app. And so when I'm ready to do some research or whatever, I can just comb through those, but they don't take up the space in my inbox. So there's a lot of, are there particular things here, Jeffrey, that you're concerned about? I guess the issue here really is, how do you decide what an important message from a site is, right? And so probably you can look back at examples of emails that are important, and based on the wordings, it's likely generated email, right? So based on that wording, just be clever in how you set up some filters to make sure those land in your inbox well. Failed backup. Yeah. So things like that, you could filter most messages over there, but if it has these words, make sure it stays in the inbox. So it's just going to take, a little bit of time coming up with that filter set to keep the important stuff in your mailbox. Now, the other thing that I would suggest, like an email from a client, this is kind of touches off on another piece of the conversation, which is, even if I'm not sure what your situation is, Jeffrey, if you're a solo or if you have a team, whatever it is, even if you're a solo, I recommend having some sort of ticket system. In other words, all your client, site change or requests go into a ticket system and stay out of your inbox. What that's going to do, a number of things, actually. It's going to allow you to schedule time every day, so that you can, like this morning from 10 to noon, I'm going to look at the tickets, right? And that lets you go in and just knock out those client requests. What that alleviates is the incessant need to keep my inbox open and respond to every new email that comes in. That kind of multitasking doesn't work. Multitasking is a myth. It does not work. And I will argue about that. So, when you're trying to focus on building something or doing a project and you've got email running over here and that message comes in, we are trained in our mind, like Pavlov's dog, to look over and deal with that notification. It's just part of, like they've proven, it's a dopamine hit, right? To deal with that notification. Just get all that stuff out of your inbox and into a ticket system where the conversation is tracked, and you can, it's like a change of work type to now move out of one thing and into client tickets for this portion of the day, right? Okay, so you have a ticket system and you have to be the enforcer. Yeah, and there is, I will not call out their name, but there is someone who I think is, no, he's not in the webinar today, but he actually took his primary email that all his clients were emailing and made that the ticket email because he could never get clients to just email the help desk. And so he put all of those emails, like all his regular emails went here, and he started using another personal Oh, there, Paul is here. There's Paul. I was looking for P Paul, and you're there is awesome, Paul. Should have thought about that. But that's Paul. And he did that, and it worked, right, Paul? Absolutely worked. So there's ways to do it. For me, if I get a client that's asking a support question in my inbox, and oftentimes it happens right as the project transitions from build to manage, like in that little next 2-week gap, a lot of times, because the client's been likely emailing me for project related things, and we just have to train them to move to the help desk. And they get an email, there's like a canned email that goes out, but you can tell some clients things 100 times and they don't stay told. It's all right. We just remind them, and don't create the ticket for them. Don't forward the email for them. Say, could you please send this to support at or help at or whatever? And that way a ticket is created in our system, right? So make them do it. And that's really going to help. Chris, thank you. And don't do the task anyway. Make them, it's a little bit of training. We got to get them using the ticket system because that makes things easier to track going forward. That was a really long answer to a question. Does that help, Jeffrey? I think everything we've talked about are real life issues that we struggle with most days. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for that one. Let us move on to the original Beth. All right, Beth Livingston. Beth says, I am using Zoho Mail for my domain email address, so I don't keep paying so much for Google Workspace. The setup is so easy because I can log into Cloudflare right from Zoho to add the correct DNS records. I've added all the normal ones, but there is one on the list I don't recognize. What is a BIMI? Okay. Beth, I don't know. I've never seen that. Yes. Okay. This is the brand message indicator. And it is a way for companies with multiple brands to kind of consolidate them all the way around. I don't think you have to do this. Apparently, BIMI is also a vegetable that looks like broccolini. Yeah. Anyway, I don't think you have to do that, Beth. But if you do, they should give you it's a text record, right? So I mean, just create it. Big deal. It's easy to create. You don't know what broccolini is? Well, let's just I mean, it's kind of scary Googling. This is broccolini, right? It looks like if broccoli and asparagus had a baby. And apparently Bimmy is a type of broccolini. It's also a DNS record. Go figure. All kinds of things you learn here on office hours. Okay, so moving right along. Did we get that for you, Beth? I don't think it's necessary, but if they give you the record, just create it. I mean, it's not going to hurt anything. Okay, Jamie Lynn is next. Do you go by Jamie Lynn or Jamie? I'm curious. All right. I've been watching the SEO health check, how to audit your client sites for SEO, and the Google Drive links don't work. Interesting. Can we get them somehow? Yes, I can give those to you right now. So I don't, Jamie. Jamie also goes by Goddess. So we'll see how that goes. Let me give you the links to SEO audit, SEO health check. Okay, a couple of things. So here's the slide deck coming at you right here. And here is the audit SEO checklist, which is an Excel file. Make sure those work. I'm copying them straight out of Google Drive. So They ought to just work. They're great, big, long, gnarly Google Drive links. So maybe something got truncated somewhere. But make sure those work, Jamie. And if so, we shall move on. Great. All right, folks. If you have a question to ask, the link to do so is there in the chat. We are just pressing forward today. Gene is next. Hey, Gene. We're going to try to avoid any more vegetable questions. Thank you for that. Okay, Gene, a client has a WooCommerce store that is underperforming. It is a local clothing and gift store that went online during COVID. It has potential. I'd like to propose some improvements. There are about 300 products. Is there a plugin that could write AI meta and descriptions for all the products? Also, good image alt text. Any other suggestions are welcome. Sure. There are many plugins that will do that. In fact, most premium SEO plugins from Yoast to, as Beth is mentioning, SEO Press and others will write descriptions, meta descriptions, titles, and so forth. There is, I think, hang on one second. I believe on our favorite deal site, there is currently an alt text. Yes. This is the one actually that we have used in the past, and it works pretty darn well. Alt text AI. I bought this when it was on AppSumo the last time, and it works really well. It'll just go straight through your media library and generate all the things. And I don't know. It's coming up quick though. It ends in 5 days. You'll want to take a look at the credits and just make sure whatever tier you get, it's that many credits per month. So, and they don't roll over. So this is pretty good. Did I drop that in the, yeah, here's the link to that. You can also, Gene, if the pages are public, you can point your favorite AI tool, ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, to that URL and actually ask it to write, page title and meta description, especially if you have a keyword that you want to use for that. You can do it just through a chat app. Chris, thank you for mentioning that. If you are using that deal for Perplexity that includes the Comet browser, like we demonstrated last week with the Agentic AI, you can actually just have it open right there and it'll create the stuff for you in the sidebar because it's already looking at the page. Kristen, thank you for that also. That is an excellent, and that this kind of goes without saying with any AI tool that you obviously want to make sure that you double check the output of anything AI does. I was just actually doing some research earlier about a couple of WordPress plugins, and ChatGPT just made up this whole answer, and it sounded really good until I said, "Are you sure about that?" And finally, it was like, "No, you're right. It doesn't do that." It's like, oh, great. Well, thank you for that. Make sure always that you are verifying everything the AI tools tell you. And as Kristen said, I used to have that link, alt text decision tree. Yes, this here at W3C. This will take you straight down the list of do you need alt text? What is it like, etc. So just make sure that you follow that. Thanks for adding that, Kristen. Okay. One other little bit on this. We need to make sure, like anytime a client has a website that is underperforming, what are they doing to promote the site, right? Because even today in 2025, a lot of clients have the attitude of if we build it, they will come. And that's just not the case anymore. An e-commerce site is going to work well if one of two things is true. Either they have unique things that you can't get anywhere else, or they have the lowest price. Because, I mean, you've seen it too, right? Like you'll go, if some other place is $2 cheaper, you might as well buy from that other place, unless there's some compelling reason that you would buy it from someplace else, right? And pay more. So it's price, and it's the rarity, or some uniqueness that you really can't get this anyplace else. That's what's going to make a site do well. So just be sure, just brushing up your meta descriptions and stuff, that's not necessarily going to make the site perform well. In the sense, if what you mean by that is people start buying things, it really needs a zoom out of what is the site selling? Who is it appealing to? How are we getting traffic here? Are the prices right? Is there any friction in the checkout process? Like maybe rather than the focus being on meta descriptions, maybe you need to look at abandoned cart tools like cart flows, or maybe look at a different, a lot of people get to the point of checkout and it's a big shipping charge and they leave their cart, right? So maybe the pricing needs to be relooked at to include shipping. So it's free shipping or flat rate shipping, or something that's not going to be too much friction as the person goes to check out. There's a lot that goes into this. And my guess is if the site is underperforming, it's probably not just around alt text and really good meta. Does that make sense, Gene? It's going to, the site likely needs a strategic makeover. Yeah. Melanie, great idea. Seasonal landing pages. You got to make things easy for people to find and buy, because you're like me. You have 8,200 browser tabs open of something I looked at and then just didn't go back to. Like, people do that and they never come back. Yeah. All right. Well, good luck with that one, Gene. All right, folks, if you have a question, use the link in the chat. Let's see here. Next question is from Jamie. Okay, talk to me about hosting. I manage my sites and my client sites on Cloudways. I used to love it, but the honeymoon is over. I'm hearing that more and more. I want to switch to GridPane, but it's pretty much over my head at the moment. So I was looking at Hostinger, and also, hey, hosting.com. It's a great choice. Can you give me a quick rundown of how I might be happier with hosting.com? My frustrations with Cloudways are that the servers are slow to create a new application, cannot do anything within the Cloudways dashboard while it's either creating a manual backup, staging a site, performing, etc., etc. The interface is a bit difficult to navigate. Cloudways uses WP Rocket, but my colleague uses Lightspeed, so I'm wondering if Lightspeed is better. My grievances with Hostinger is that there's no one-click cloning feature, and I think you only get one on-demand backup per day, and their interface is a little wonky for me as well. Okay, so this is a lot. It's a lot, Jamie. So I don't know how. Okay, so a lot of this is exactly what I'm talking about at the end of this month in the hosting blueprint, right? And thinking through what's a good solution for hosting for a client, right? So okay, how do I start into this question? What I will tell you is this. I today just renewed and purchased a new server on hosting.com, a new virtual dedicated server where we'll take our old A2 server, and we're going to move everything into the new refreshed hardware. The hardware that hosting.com provides is fabulous. Like, it just doesn't get better. It's really, really good quality hardware for the level of price. Now, my question here is, what are you looking for as far as features? So I see you're talking about, there's a lot here, right? Like pushing and pulling between a live and stage site, that sort of thing. Those are features that are more managed WordPress oriented. And one of the things I'm going to talk about at the end of this month in the hosting blueprint conversation is there are some websites likely that you have that need a higher level of hosting where you have staging built in and things like that. For that, that's where Rocket.net is ideal, and it is fabulous. For more basic sites that you're probably not really going to need a staging, you could make a clone of it and then just push it, manually, move it back over to the other area if you ever have to do that. Most sites probably don't need that level of staging. And that's where a great VPS or dedicated server comes in. So that's kind of the big picture of where I'm headed and kind of thinking through that in the hosting blueprint and then how to set that up. And Melanie's, yeah, you're exactly right. It makes a lot of sense actually to offer a premium level of hosting for those clients that need it. And so that's why I'm thrilled that Rocket.net is part of hosting.com family now. I moved a site over to Rocket.net earlier this week, my nathaningram.com site, and it is fast. And that migration, literally, I was on the chat with the guy and it was done in like 3 minutes. Boom, done. Go look over here. Oh, wow, it's there. And then you just click a few things and it's live. I was absolutely blown away by how easy that process was. So that's, I don't want to give a much longer answer about that than that because I'm literally going to spend an hour on it in a couple of weeks. So Jamie, is that fair for now? So Rocket is WP Rocket is included in Rocket.net at no cost. And Jamie, if you will, if you're interested, I can get you connected with Mike Demo, who is the account rep, and he can talk you through the best solution otherwise. But that's one of the great things about hosting.com is if you're an agency and you're spending money at a price point, you get a person that knows what's going on and can help you find the great solution. Okay. Oh, good. Okay, Jamie, you got it. Yep. Yeah, so Mike Demo has been around the WordPress world for many, many years. I've known him from WordCamps from ever ago, and he is the North American agency, something or other. Got a very impressive title. Basically, he helps agency owners find the right fit for their hosting. Okie dokie. So, Jamie, we kind of scratched the surface there. We'll go way deeper in a couple of weeks. All righty. Next up is Gene. Gene, follow up. The client with the WooCommerce store. They have some items for sale as products like t-shirts, stuffed animals. In the actual store, they have the option of adding customized imprinting to the products for an upcharge. How could that be handled in the online store? Gene, there are a multitude of different WooCommerce add-ons that will allow you to personalize items. I know there's one. Yeah, there's just so many. Product add-ons is an actual core plugin. Um, this is likely a good one as well. This is from the folks at Skyverge, customizer for WooCommerce. There's a number of these that will allow you to collect the information for personalization, like embroidery or whatever, or engraving. So here's a few plugin options. And you can even change the price points based on what they add, that sort of thing. So it will, let's see. Yeah, like here's adding different things, different upcharges. So all these plugins are made to do exactly what you're describing, Gene. Oh, and Melanie just dropped in a Barn 2 plugin. All the Barn 2 plugins are good that I've had any experience with whatsoever. So, Gene, does that help? That give you a way to go forward? All righty. There's one more from Gene here. I'm going to go ahead and do that in case it's also about the WooCommerce store. It is. Okay. So while on the same subject, okay, before we move here, Gene is saying if it's just one or two items, is there a simpler way? It doesn't matter if there's one or two items or 50, you've got to have the functionality in place, right? So, yeah, you might be able to create something, but then at that point, you've basically written a plugin. I mean, it depends on what you're trying to do. You could say, for example, that it's a variable product with a customized option. And once they make the purchase, then you reach out to them and say, what do you want to customize? And at that point, it would just, it would charge them an extra amount based on the product variation of customized. You could do it that way. But if they want to automate this at all, just buy the plugin. It's not terribly expensive. Yeah. None of those plugins are prohibitively expensive. All right. Okay, so continuing on with this WooCommerce store, the website is large and bloated with products they no longer carry. I'd like to clean it up. What is the best method of removing these unnecessary products and their images? Oh, do redirects need to be added for each of the 100 to 150 products? Okay, so first, images. Gene, is it possible that any of the images are used on multiple products? Like there's an image on this product that's no longer around, but there is that it's also used on a live product, or are all the images specific to that one product? Yeah. So if they're specific, then what you can do, and Beth is describing this, we actually talked through this on an office hours thing a long time ago. It's not a very complicated snippet, but we did that. We had ChatGPT write us a little snippet that says on product delete, you go out and delete all the images that are attached to the product. And that got the featured image as well as all of the gallery images. They're considered image attachments to the product. And so when you trash or when you empty the product out of the trash can on deletion of the product, it goes through and removes the associated media items as well. Yeah. So that's the easiest way to do it. Test it, back up first, back up twice, and test it. Right. It's a as I recall, it was the code fit on one without scrolling down the code editor. Right. Like it wasn't more than 50 lines of code, if that. And definitely, yeah, create a staging site, make a back, just test it first because this is destructive. But it's not complicated. We did it very quickly. Do redirects need to be added for products that are removed? This might be another good case for a little script that, like, make a page that says, product no longer available or something like that, that's inviting and not just a stark 404 page, but say, the product you're looking for is no longer available in our store. Here's some options, blah, blah, blah. Right. And like put like a little store, featured products or a search or something there so that it engages people further. And you can write a script that says, if somebody's accessing a post in the post type of product and it's a 404, redirect them to this page instead. It's a really simple script, and that will get it over. That if somebody tries to access a product that's a 404, it would send them to that particular page instead of the standard 404 page. Yeah, it's always good to create as friendly and helpful of a 404 page as you possibly can. And if you can even make it specific to, this thing like an unavailable product, then, that one's not available, but wow, look at all these other ones. Yeah. All righty. Next up is Karen. Hey, Karen. Have you ever shared what you typically include and how you present your paid discoveries? If not, would you ever consider doing a webinar on it? I'd be especially interested in seeing both what you cover and how you present the findings and report. I've been doing paid discoveries for over 5 years now, but I still sometimes wrestle with feeling that it's not enough for the money or not adding enough value for the client, even though I know I'm including a lot of important research and insights. Hearing how you approach it would be really helpful. All right. This is a great question. So Karen, let me ask you this. You still sometimes wrestle with the feeling that it's not enough for the money. Has the client ever said that to you, or is that the thing I'm telling myself in my head? Yeah. Okay. So this is the point where you turn to your own self and you say, hush, right? Because the client is pleased and you're delivering value, right? There is something about, and I don't know where we get this, but it is very common. Let me pause even before I say it. In the chat, if you have done paid discovery, have you also wrestled with, I'm not delivering enough value for the money? Just give me a yes or no. Yeah. Ben says it's an infectious disease. Okay, let me press play again on the thing that was going in my head. This is a common thing that we have because for whatever reason, I haven't put my finger on why, but for whatever reason, we feel like unless I'm like building something, then I'm not really working or delivering value. The strategy, it's we find it harder to charge for the strategy unless there's actually a thing that is built at the end of it. Now, what we don't realize, or what that like the problem with that viewpoint is, you don't know what you're building until you know what you're building, right? And you don't know what you're building until you spend some time thinking it through. Like we do this in a typical website build where we think through a content architecture strategy and what ought to be on the side and how it should be arranged and maybe what the calls to action are and how do we funnel the user through to do the thing that we want them to do. Like we think about that, but it's all part of the project. But when you're doing a paid discovery, that piece of thinking is separated from the rest of the project, but it still has value on its own. You're just in a typical project, you're rolling it into the build cost. But if you don't do that strategy, the website's going to be awful. So, if you get to the point, and by the way, this is going to be part of the conversation that we have during the live stream in a couple weeks where I talk about the scope strategy and confident consultations. There'll be a point where you have to decide in this framework, do I know how to price this project, or are there some unknowns that we need to investigate? And if there are unknowns that we need to investigate, the answers to those questions so that the unknowns become known has value. And either the client can provide those answers or they can hire us to do it. And one thing that makes it feel better to me is that the way I position a discovery, a paid discovery phase with the client is no different than I position a proposal of services to build a website. There's literally a proposal of services where the scope of work is answering these questions and they're bulleted out on this. These are the things we're going to figure out. The deliverable is a document that answers these questions, and here's the cost to do it. And there's a deliverable and there's answers, and the client has already agreed to pay this much money for those answers, right? And that helps me not feel bad about it. It helps me not give away intellectual property and things that I have learned and known over all these years for free. So does that help, Karen? Yeah. So Karen is saying, I don't think clients even look at the reports, even though I spend so much time on them. Yeah. Okay. And so here's the thing. There are a lot of folks who push paid discovery, and it's appropriate in some cases. In my opinion, if you're building a basic website, that's you don't need discovery. Like you know what it's going to take and you know what it's going to cost unless you're brand new to building websites. It's when you introduce a layer of complexity where you're not quite sure how something's going to happen, or if there are internal things with the client that have to be worked out and fitted with some technology. Like when there's question marks, that's when paid discovery makes sense. Paid discovery for a basic website is overkill to me. And that's where I would even find it difficult to charging for that for basic things. Now, that's different also, by the way, than a marketing plan. The client may not know what they're doing or saying or who they're talking to or how to position their product. That's a marketing conversation, and that marketing discovery has value, and you should charge for it. This is getting into a lot of the content of the Confident Consultations live stream that's coming up in a couple of weeks. Okay, I have a web design, a redesign project about ready to launch. The site was on Wix, oh my, and never submitted to Google. No SEO, no sitemap. Good. The majority of their pages went with time out. Does Google actually not know the site exists? Like, have you done site colon and some text? Or have you added a Google Search Console for that domain and looked and see what's indexed under it? That would be the first step to making sure that the site has not been indexed. Yeah, so do that. Get control, set up a Google Search Console, add the DNS records to do that. Then you can see what's actually indexed for the site. The majority of their pages were never in the nav menu, but links for particular client events. We did not bring over about 1,000 blog posts. Good Lord. Because they were real content, but more like press releases and 2 or 3 sentence items that were, yeah. Okay, I have a master spreadsheet with all the redirects, but now I'm thinking just how important it is to redirect all those orphan posts and pages. I've already done the redirects for pages and blog posts we kept. I hate the idea of 1,000 plus redirects in the back end. Okay, Melanie, is there any, yeah, this sounds fun. How'd you find these people? No, this sounds fun, right? Okay, so is there anything about the URLs of these 1,000 things that is similar? Like, is there a /news/something? Or is it just all plain slug after the domain name? If there's any pattern, okay, so if it's Melanie's saying there's /blog in some of the URLs. So what you could do is get ChatGPT to write you an htaccess redirect that says if blog is in the well, you've kept some of those though, right? I was going to say you could write a redirect using regex to move, but that's going to catch everything. If all of these are old, irrelevant, thin content, I don't think you're at a lot of risk of ditching it. This might be a great case again for that little snippet that says if it's a blog post and it's a 404, send them to this page. This was a news item that was blah, blah, blah. Click here for all of our whatever. Maybe do like a conditional redirect, a conditional 404 page like that. That might be a good idea. If there are other pages, you really just have to decide were these indexed to begin with? Probably not. You'd want to look at Google Search Console and find that out for sure. But then just make your 404 page really helpful. You know, you landed on this page because there was old, looking for old content. We've recently updated our website. Click here for all the news items. Just a helpful 404 page is probably what I would do, rather than 1,000 redirects. Now, this is all contingent on, is it really indexed? If it is indexed, I might lean into, let's go ahead and do the redirects. You could also, in the redirection plugin, create a special group for stupid redirects and put all 1,000 in that one, right? That way you could filter it out in the redirection plugin if you wanted to. All right. Good luck with that. That sounds like a lot of fun. Okay, Ben Bradley is next. Hey, Ben. Ever since GDPR came in, I stopped any idea of growing my mailing list. Do you undertake any email marketing for your business to a mailing list of clients or connections that you've gathered over the years? Currently, I have an automated newsletter sent to a client list for any new posts that get published on my website as it's in their interest. However, I have a large list of contacts, and I think I should reach out with a basic opt out message. And those that don't opt out, I should maybe add them to my mailing list depending on user interest. Does anyone else do active email marketing for your business? So let's pose that as a question, shall we? Is anyone doing active email marketing, not only to current clients, but others who are on a more at-large list? But Ben, I think the process you've described here is solid. You've got the contacts, give them an opt-out. You may, it really depends on what you want to do here, Ben. Did they legitimately opt in, like they filled out something and hit the button to add themselves to your list? Or was it you added them to a mailing list at some point? Like you met them someplace and you added them to a list? Because if you added them to the list, or if most of them you added versus they opted in at some point, I would probably more past correspondence and emails from them. Okay, so they didn't actually opt into your list. I would not contact those people with a bulk email. And when you're trying to cleanse a list, really you ought to send like the default should be I'm opting out unless I re-up, right? So yeah. And the question is, what value is this to your business and how does this fit into your marketing strategy? Reaching out to current clients is obviously important, but others. All right. Any other advice for Ben? Beth, that's a brilliant idea. Create a free digital product and send them an offer to it with an opt-in. Yeah, and Paul has a great idea as well. Paul is really good on email marketing. Series of emails to actively ask them to click something to show interest or they'll be unsubscribed automatically. Also good. But if they didn't opt in specifically, they shouldn't be on your list to begin with. Basic principle. All right, next up is Stacy with an E. Hey, Stacy. Oh boy. Stacy, what do you use for your email client for your business email? I hate using Liquid Web email client, so I have everything forwarded to a Gmail address and I can reply from Gmail with my company email address. Client on Microsoft Outlook has blocked my email coming from Gmail, even though it shows my company email address. Okay, so just so I understand what you're asking, Stacy, we're talking about what email app that I'm using or email platform. Because client means like an application. Like I use Polymail as my mail app. So, Stacy, are you meaning, yeah, the application? So I use Polymail, and it's great. I love it. I have been tempted to move other times to other things. I just can't find anything else that matches my workflow better. Melanie's got some good suggestions. Proton Spark, also good. You have to find one that fits you. I am not an Outlook person. And it's a very simple reason. I want to be able to keep my calendar open without being aware that there's an email that just came in. And Outlook makes that very difficult. Yeah. So there's a few good suggestions for you. Stacy, are you on a Mac or a PC? Oh, a PC. I know Polymail does have a PC version. The Mac just basic Mac mail is pretty darn good. It's gotten better over the years. It used to be a dumpster fire. But yeah. Anybody on a PC that has specific suggestions for Stacy, chime in there in the chat. All righty. Last but certainly not least today is Doug. Hey, Doug. My client is asking that I put a logo carousel with links to each logo. The logos represents the sponsors. My client wants to put the logo carousel in the footer so that it appears on every page. I think it's going to look goofy and distracting, but maybe that's the point. What would Nathan do? That's funny. Is there a nice way to guide my client into a better result? Okay. Doug, what kind of website is this? Is this like a nonprofit website where they have sponsors? Okay, it's a nonprofit that has sponsors. So I don't think it would be bad necessarily to put at the bottom. I wouldn't mix it in with the footer, but maybe a pre-footer above the footer. It's a slightly different color, and drop in a horizontal logo carousel, making sure they understand this is going to cause a performance impact on their pages because all the logos have to load, blah, blah, blah. But, have your footer, but then putting all of that in a pre-footer that's just above the footer, that can work. I think it could actually look decent. Now, if you're trying to fit in a dumb logo carousel in the middle of this, that's not a good idea. So does that make sense, Doug? Like one layer above the footer and just make that on every page. Pre-footer. There you go. I just made that up. I don't know if that's a thing or not. All right, everybody. Great questions today. Thank you so much for asking them. Hopefully this has been a good use of your time and you have been informed and possibly entertained along the way. We'll have this recording up at sometime in the next few days. I'm going to drop in one more time the list of links coming up to all the things we've been talking about, from the Agency Success Hosting Blueprint on the 30th to the SEO conversation about migrating from one domain name to another, confident consultations. All of that is in the link bundle I just dropped in. The replay link is there as well. Look at the hosting.com YouTube channel, and you will find on it playlists for office hours and for agency success live streams. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I hope you don't do any work at all and you get to do something fun with your friends and family. I'll see you back here in a couple of weeks when we talk about, or actually it'll be next Thursday. We'll be back at office hours here on Agency Success with hosting.com, where we go further together.